Oh gosh, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, we're live? Okay. So in the email I sent out this morning was the handout that we're gonna go over today. The audio of Lizzie telling the story, that's the one that we've listened to in class. And then there's a link to the 2019 language camp where you get to, you get to see some of the things that the kids do at language camp, but midway through is when you get to hear the kids retell the story, which is really cool. The other thing that I found that we were talking about when learning about Lizzie working with Tom and deciding to do the recordings with him, I had brought up that at that time when Tom would travel from speaker to speaker, he would, they would sometimes pass messages to each other. So Lizzie would say a message for her sister Sarah, and then when he would get to the recording or get to Sarah's house, he would share, and then Sarah could do a response. We have a recording of them talking to each other. So I want to start out our week by listening to Lizzie Christ and Sarah Sheldon. Their cute little conversation in Lushootseed. Okay, I'm going to bring that back.
Praise the Lord. Are you taking it? Well, he will go out and go to the horse station. If you had a new basket like that, you should buy short t-shirt. You could like so dollars so go we talk hot so go to the squad. Squad what turn to cross wheel. Go to a header go Tiago Quest. Go Lila so go up to chat stick with a food so go Titas Ista. Like stick go smooth quacked go squad Tias pure Tias top. Go all down go. All down go Tia hot. Go where Tias pure so go. Go all down go Tia go hold chip go all down go Tias top so go go where Tias pure so go the guy go the hold so go so go hold so go Tias so go Stava bila schiet, beata bila shout so laat. Bila holda go tia hakot. Hoel tia chuto. Bila go hakt tia squal figur. Tia Pchuk figura quadro go tia kok figura hogo tia clara hogo tia tisudara go quad the skolk tia hogo go hogo tia tia. Pare hawa kula altia. Tukura tik suko sa wa kritu hak tit hak. To swear tia bastard tia.
What are some of the words that you guys can pick out of there?
Definitely pasta.
We heard posted. So she's talking about postids. Did anybody hear iltbead? She uskalasi. And what is uskalasi? What does it sound like? Crazy. Crazy. Because we don't have an R. So if you put an L instead of the R, kalasi. Kalasi. Something crazy. She's talking about postids. She's talking about a iltbead. I think she said a hate iltbead. A big, whether it was a canoe or whether she's talking about a big boat, like a big vessel. Then you hear spachot. Did you guys hear spachot? That's a basket. So she's talking about baskets. She's talking about cooking in the baskets. Another word that pops out is, and I'm trying to like think of these one words that you guys might be able to, if we listen to that passage again, like these words that pop out. Biats is a word for meat, raw meat, biats. And then sulad, she did say sulad, if you caught that. This is only halfway through their conversation, but the fluid back and forth, and then to hear them laugh and to hear them just really enjoy being able to speak to each other in the language. And at this time, they were the last of the speakers. Thomas had done a post on Facebook last week, and one of the comments that really, really gets to you is one of our community members said that they grew up next to their grandparents who spoke the language, but they were never taught the language. So this is that generation that they held on to it together, but they didn't necessarily, because of the fast pace, because of the changing, because of the trauma, because of the influence of English. This is the generation that held on to the language together through speaking, but notice that in their descendants, they started to lose it. What else was I going to say? Although Lizzie did these recordings, and that's how we learn a lot of our language today, these recordings were a big part of her legacy of passing on and teaching. And it may not have been her coming into a classroom and trying to teach conversation to the community, but what she was able to do at that time was to sit with Tom and to do those recordings with him, and to know that these words would be documented, because this is the new change of learning. This is obviously what was being introduced to help document everything. And it reminds me of my grandma Della. She said that her mom, Grandma Elsie, and all of Grandma Elsie's friends, whenever they were at the Shaker Church and they were cooking for gatherings, or down at the dining hall cooking for the community, and they were big time service workers, like really providing for the community. Every time the women would come together, they would be talking in the language. And Grandma said that she would sit under the table and she would listen to them. And although she didn't the language wasn't necessarily being transferred to Grandma, like through Grandma Elsie sitting down and teaching her the language because of the pressure from English. Grandma remembered those times. And she said that when my sister Sonia started teaching the language, she started in the department before I did. She said that if she closed her eyes, she could hear my Grandma Elsie's voice. And I thought that like still holds on, like so special to know that Grandma was, that's where the chain kind of broke for the language being spoken. And because it broke with Grandma, the language didn't necessarily transfer on to my mother's generation. But then for my grandma to see her grandchildren start to speak it and to know that her great-grandchildren would have a better opportunity of speaking it. That's what I also think about. And I know everybody's family has stories of this, has stories of the language, of these moments when they were spoken together. Listening to these elders speak, it literally puts a smile on my face. So some of those words that we heard posted. We heard iltbead, spacho, sulad, meatman. So I'm going to try to bring it back to a point where it's not so, where the audio wasn't being so loud. That's Martin's translation. Martin said, I heard it from my ancestors. But even thinking about this audio, like even thinking of like Tom being in this space with both of these speakers, and he obviously was scrambling to take his recording materials out so he could try to catch them naturally talking to one another. And you'll hear her pause and she'll ask him like, did you start? Like, are you recording now? But they had already been going into their conversation. So let's see how far back I can get it.
If you had any basket like that, you might show t-shirt. You could like so down so go be to a cut for so go to a squad. Squad what turned was weird. Go to a header for Tiago Quest. Go Lila so go up to church. They go to food so go Titas Ista. Holak go Slut Quakeda goes could add Piers Pichu Tias Town. Go all down go. Oh, all down go Tia Hutwood. Go where Tias Pichu so go. Go all down go Tia go home chip go all down go Tia stops us go all. Go where Tias Pichu so go. When you die go to hold so go settle. Go hold so go Tias settle so go. Stop a bit streets, beat a bit shout so loud. Go all down go Tia Hutwood. Schuto. Bila go hartstiga skvalsigo distia pchuk go rwazo go tia kokli gida go go tiji kakara go go tia disudara go twat the skolk silcheli go go tia tika pare hawa kula altia to go altika so go so go kritu pak cheese pak to swear tia bastard tia.
So just listening to that, here's some of the words that really pop out from listening to it. When she's talking about the spacho, I don't know if you guys heard ch-a. She says ch-a, 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 rocks. One of the ways of cooking food, so she named biats and sulad. One of the ways of cooking the food traditionally was to take hot rocks and put them in a spacho, in a basket with water, and that would boil the water. So squalls and cold, those are both words for cooking. So it's kind of neat to like pick a little bit of those pieces of their conversation. And this is actually one of the advanced projects that we worked on within our department to try to boost our ability to fine-tune our hearing. Is we had to listen to this and we had to transcribe it. And I'll have to find that on my computer, what I was able to get from transcribing this. I haven't listened to it in a long time. And this is another thing, like another reminder that if we're not keeping pieces of our language in our mind every single day, we're going to lose it. So I've had access to this audio for many years, but if I don't make the time to listen to it, then I'm going to kind of stumble and be like, okay, oh yeah, this is what they're talking about. Oh, this is what came up. Oh, what was going on? I heard pegwood, and we refer to our longhouses as pegwood alt. So pegwood, wondering if that's like houses or villages. She talks about a ilt bead. So the wonder, was she talking about the postposted arriving here on a ilt bead? So just trying to piece all of those together. But more or less, the main reason for listening to this is for us to be able to hear and enjoy two sisters that were recorded having a conversation, being able to sit there and talk freely to each other. I didn't realize I was standing right in front of that. But to listen to them talking together and really enjoying their moment of not having to use English. Listening to Lizzie's recordings, her Lushootseed is so fluid and so beautiful. And then you notice when she switches to English, it's kind of like, what did I say? Like trying to recall in English. How do I put words in English for what I just said in my language? And how you can see that difficulty. And thinking about, well, what was the fluidity of their English conversations? We have this Lushootseed recording and we can just hear how comfortable and lively they were being able to talk back to each other and be able to ask questions and like keep this going. This recording alone is 6 minutes and 30 seconds. But just to hear that is really powerful. There was one time when I was told by somebody after doing a prayer that she was like, man, you speak so beautiful in Lushootseed, but you really suck at English. And at first I was like, dang, what type of a comment is that? But after listening to this and hearing fluidity, like when you're thinking, when you try to train yourself to think in the language first or you speak, I like the way that Vi refers to the language in her video, Lushootseed, because it's called Teachings of the Heart. And when the more you learn of the language, the more you use of it, it's really a feeling to speak it. more than it is anything else. So being able to put your feelings into the words of your ancestral language. At first I was kind of like, dang, what does that mean when she says that I speak good at Lushootseed, but then I kind of suck at English? Then I understood, and I was like, yeah, because I knew exactly what to say in my own language. But then when I had to translate it for somebody else to feel what I just said, I couldn't find the right words. So what we can try to transcribe and translate isn't going to have that full meaning that the both of them enjoyed together. We can try to get as close as we can, but I just love being able to hear them enjoy the language.
Enjoy each other's company.
Yes. Do you have this one? No? Okay. So let's practice. Let's practice counting. Is she going to make it? She's here. Duh. Sorry. I'm looking right next to her.
I don't like big numbers.
You don't like
I
what?
don't count that high.
Wait a lot, Chuff. How old are you, Bob? Huh?
Bathroom.
Right through there. Bob is Olob. Olob Balad. Okay, let's start out by counting to 10. Ready? O, Sali, Hliw, Bos, Salats, Yalats, Ok, Takachi, Chwal, Olob, O, Sali, Hliw, Bos, Salats, Yalats, Oaks, Takachi, Chwal, Olob.
You gotta do this. Is that what that means?
It's counting, which they do. I think they do. Weren't you asking if there was a way?
Yeah, if there's a particular way, because some.
I think there
languages-
is.
But I just
let me
noticed on
look up.
here it has the thumb wiggle.
Oh,
I was like,
because I think 6 actually means switch over. Zalachi. So we use yalats. Down south, they use Zalachi. And that has to do with, Zalachi means right hand. So it's starting on one hand and switching over to the other hand. All right. Looking at these numbers, let's go over some of the sounds that if we don't kind of tune ourselves to saying them and hearing them, then we kind of get lazy. And the reason why I say this is when I first started out in the department, when we were counting, when we would get to 10, everybody was saying Olub, which isn't too far from Olob, but it is a shift. And that's where we can see some of the language when people are a little bit lazier with speaking it, even something as simple as saying Olob and Olob, Olub. Something that simple actually does change the language. So for
Anything else then when you say it like that?
sometimes it does mean completely different things. Sometimes no, it's just kind of, you're just losing the connection with it. So for one, in our territory, I think we're one of the only places that says ch-o. O. In other places, they say Dutch O. Dutch O. Sali. 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 Hliu. Hliu. Hliu.
Was that in the conversation too? I swear I heard that for some reason.
Which one?
In the recording.
Counting?
Yeah.
There may have been. Could have. Maybe there were 3 canoes, 3 baskets, 3 baskets.
3 crazy pots.
3 crazy small. No. Hliu. Making sure you're blowing out the candle at the end. Hliu. Hliu. Bos. Bos. Salats. Salats. Yalats. Yalats. Oaks. Oaks. Takhachi. Coming back here for that one. Tuck. 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 Takhachi. Takhachi. Hual. Hual. Olob. Olob. When you move on from counting to 10, since you are using your hands for counting, when you move past, so olob, you're gonna, if you go above 10, olob iquicho is 11. It's literally saying 10 and 1. Olob iquicho. When you move above through your teens, 11 through 19, when you get to 20, sali achi. That literally means 2 sets of hands. Sali achi. Then you move up to your 30s. Hliu achi. Bos achi. Salats achi. Yalats achi. Oaks achi. Takachi achi. Takachi achi. If you say 88, Takachi achi, equi Takachi. 90, hualachi. So those are sets of hands. So counting using your fingers, counting using sets of hands. That's how we were counting, using our hands.
How come it changed from the Kui to T? Like, I learned Olabi Cho.
It's not that big of a difference. Equi or et. It's kind of.
Could you say?
You could
either?
use either way. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go into this conversation. Now, this would have been a homework that you would have been listening to some audio and you would have been trying to translate it. There would have been new words that you would have had to figure out. But I think this is a good conversation for us to work through together. I just realized something's wrong with our printer. Stripe at the top. All right. So on our little conversation here, the first question that is being asked by person 1, where is your female cat? Where is your female cat? some of the questions that we've gone over. What, who, or what. Uschal, how, asking how something is doing. Quaid, how many. We had that little lesson on how many. And now, to ask where. Chad. Am I missing any questions? I think that's it that we've gone over. Ooh, let me expand this because we're going to add another one. Where is your female cat? So we're going to start out with chod. 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 Chod means where. So how do we do the rest of this? What pieces do we need to make sure that we're covering that are listed in here? Your, you own it, or it's yours, you possess this. So we're going to use what? Odd. What do you have? Pish, pish. Male or female? Chod, sod, pish, pish. Chod, sod, pish, pish. Where is your cat? Where is your female cat? Where is your cat? If things feel overwhelming when you see a sentence and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to translate this, take those little pieces and just start piecing it together. Like the your part. The your is a possessive, so we know that we're going to use odd. We see the word cat. We know that we're talking about a pish pish. We see the word female in there, so we know we're going to use the tsi. So if it's helpful, another thing that you could do if you see this question is to break it down. This is your possessive, C for the female, pish pish for cat, and then we just learned that chod means where. So if we break down these pieces, then we know that we can put it in a correct order. Chod, C, odd, pish pish. Chod, sod, pish pish. So the response she is sleeping in the garage. What words do we know?
E2.
E2, us E2, So the E2 for sleep is sleeping. Us E2. She doesn't need to be named. This right here means both of these. She is sleeping because we're not naming her. Us E2, she is sleeping. Who remembers on the Alti? On the us E2 Alti. I'm trying to remember what we used for garage. Do you remember from this? Because there's different ways that you could do this.
Ilpi Dolly?
Is it Ilpi Dolly?
I don't know, I'm guessing.
That's what I would guess too.
I want to say that is what it's called. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember.
So for garage, Ilpi Dolly. Ilpi Dolly. That means this ollie means area. So as a part of your house, this is the car area, the garage.
Where are you getting
Unless you're on the res.
like the sheet? How would you pull that? Like, say you just read that. Where would you?
If you just read this.
Yeah.
If you read this, you know that by this question, where
Is there
is
connection?
your female
Okay.
cat? Yeah. She is sleeping in the garage. Us E2 Alti Ilpi to Ollie. So that one's actually fitting in order. We didn't have to move anything around. How many cats do you have? So, what words do we know? How many? Quaid. So both of these together, how many? We're talking about a number. Quaid. What about cats? Plural. Pish, pish, pish. And then do you have, so this is talking about a possessive, the you possessive, odd. Quaid, quad, pish, pish, pish. Quaid, quad, pish, pish, pish. Okay, what's our number? The answer for quaid, quad, pish, 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 how many cats do you have? The response was 4, no, 5. So what are we starting with? Quaid, how many is this? Bos. How do we say no? Quaid. Quaid. Salats. So the answer to Quaid quad pish pish pish, how many cats do you have? Dos Quaid salats. So maybe they forgot about a cat. So this question now is in response to not really being clear on how many cats you have. How come? So for this one, so why or how come is asachid. Asachid. Be careful if you teach that one to your kids. Asachid. Asachid. I actually nicknamed a nephew that because he would always continue with the why, why, why. The first question was always, where's Lizzie? She's not here. Why? She's with her auntie. Why? So I really did nickname him Asachid.
Is that root come from like a feeling?
Achid. We use, it's, how do I say this? Like Aschal, Asachid. It's actually down south, and I'm curious to see if anywhere up north does this. They, for asking us, we say Aschalcha, they say Achidcho, which is interesting. Achid, and then they have it listed as something different. In the dictionary, they say what happened to. Achid. There's a whole bunch of different variances on it. Okay, now we need to say one mother cat, 4 children. And remember, the children are her own children. So, how do we say this one? Quaid. Oh. What is mom? Skoy. Oh, skoy. Pish pish. To say and when connecting nouns, e. E. Quaid. Bos. And then her children, her own children. Bud-bada. O skoy pish pish, e bos bud-bada. So E connects nouns. So this one, now the response is going back to the person who originally asked. So, and you, what are we saying here? The emphatic you, or when you call on someone? Degui. Degui. Going back over here. Quaid quad pish pish. Pish pish pish. Degui. Quaid quad pish pish pish. Okay, I have one. I have one. Quaid. Oh. We're going to leave it at this for now because we're at 12:50, but we can do this one. What's his name? Guat. Qui. Sda. Guat quis das. What's his name? Her name is friend. So we're starting out with the name. What is friend? I was about to say, what is Siaya? And then we're going backwards. Siaya sees das. Siaya sees das. All right, I took you a minute over. We will look at this conversation some more tomorrow.